Oh no, they're all good movies. You've seen the title already. I'm ranking almost every neon horror movie ever made. I did a similar video not that long ago for A24 horror movies because both studios are killing it lately. I mean, they've been great, but definitely recently they've just been everywhere, I feel like. Definitely had a lot to do with the writer strikes 2 summers ago now. And they were able to continue working on their projects because they agreed to pay writers what they were asking. So these studios are just really making it so easy to support them, honestly. So I thought the A24 ranking was difficult. But I think, like, when I sat down and I was looking at the list of movies for this one, I was like, I think this one's more difficult to rank. Like, overall more difficult. So just know that for the most part, with the exception of maybe like the first 2 or 3 on the list, everything else is like, it's the difference of like a literal single strand of hair. So sad to say that It Lives Inside is at the bottom of the list for me. And if you forgot about this movie, I wouldn't feel too bad about it because I also forgot a lot about this movie. It follows Sam, whose desperation to be popular leads her to distance herself from her childhood best friend right as a demonic spirit latches onto her. It's forgettable for sure because I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I felt like it was predictable at the time as well. Going to see the movie with Emma, because that was when she visited Orlando, was way more memorable than the movie could have ever been. You can check out our review of it on her channel. I'll link the video up here if you want to hear our thoughts in more detail, or just see a cute little come with me where we're together in the same space. Next on the list is Assassination Nation. I also don't remember a whole lot about this movie, I'm gonna be honest. I remember it's bonkers for sure. I really need to watch it again and see if it holds any different weight now. I gave it 5 stars, which is crazy for me considering I don't remember much about it. But I am very self-aware in the fact that I give away 5 stars like it's candy on Halloween. And not that I think that there's anything inherently wrong with that. I am trying to break the habit ever so slightly and maybe just be like a little bit more discerning and truly just save like that full 5-star rating for the best of the best. I'll leave my rating as is until I rewatch it and then we'll see. So it does kind of seem like a cop-out, but I'm gonna put Assassination Nation here for now. Like I did with the A24 ranking, I'm gonna make this ranking a list on my Letterboxd, so whenever I rewatch it at some point, if it changes its rank, then you'll be able to see it there. All right, so I'm going to put Presence next on the list. I reviewed this one recently as it came out just this last month. I liked this one. Seeing a haunting story from the POV of a ghost or a spirit was cool and unique. It was also scary in a way I wasn't expecting it to be when I went into the movie. It was really well done, I want to make that clear. Just compared to the other movies on this list, like the impact that this movie left was just like ever so slightly less. And I feel like as I move on in the list, you guys maybe might understand. After Presence, I think it might have to be Immaculate, which was one of 2 religious horror movies that came out last spring. This one, of course, stars Sydney Sweeney as a nun who becomes pregnant through Immaculate Conception and learns a dark secret about the convent that she's staying in. The sheer bonkersness of the ending is something that stays with you forever, not to be dramatic. And even if I didn't personally prefer Immaculate more than The First Omen, can't help but compare the 2, I'm sorry, it's still a really strong movie. If I learned nothing else from seeing Immaculate, it's that I want like 14 more horror movies starring a blood-soaked Sydney Sweeney just screaming into the camera. Next on the list is Possessor. Brandon Cronenberg's batshit crazy sci-fi horror movie is one that I realized when I went to go check what I rated it on Letterboxd, I realized I didn't ever rate it. I didn't ever give it a star rating. I just marked that I watched it in my diary and went on my way, which I think is really funny. I get it though. This was such a wild movie. Sci-fi horror at its best. Honestly, as much as I love space horror, and I do really love space horror, I do just so enjoy this kind of sci-fi where it's still rooted in our own world, just with something like a little more like technologically fantastical going on. And I gotta be honest, like even if I rewatched it again soon, I don't know if I would be able to come up with a star ranking. It's definitely one that sticks with you. It just might have to be that one where it's like, it just defies star ratings. Okay, after that, I think I'm gonna go with Cuckoo, which is another batshit crazy movie, just in a completely different way than Possessor. I really love the combination of comedy and horror, and Cuckoo kind of nails that, but in a super unique way. It's not necessarily like outright funny, it's not like a slapstick comedy or anything like that, but it's like that kind of like bizarre, kind of awkward comedy where you almost don't know what to do other than laugh. Like that nervous kind of laughter. It's really a one-of-a-kind movie, which I feel like we could very honestly say that about every single movie on this list. Like, kudos to Neon, because this ranking is really difficult because the movies are so different and unique. It's just like, oh no, they're all such good movies. This placement for this movie was difficult, and I'm sure y'all will understand when you realize what movies I still have left to talk about. But the next one is Longlegs, taking the number 6 spot. And don't get me wrong, I loved Longlegs. Despite Osgood Perkins' like really weird, I don't watch modern horror comment he made. Emma Spooky Astronauts informed me of that during one Does This Offend You episode, and I don't know if I can remember which one it was, but I'll link it up here, where she shared that information with me. So fucking weird to say that, because you're making modern horror. I don't really get it. But Longlegs as a movie is just so unsettling. Like it really captures and replicates in such a cool way the same exact feeling that I get when watching Silence of the Lambs. Like this feeling that something is just very, very wrong. And the worst thing is it's a human being, which makes everything so much more scary. Like ghosts and monsters, vampires, whatever are one thing, but when it's just your fellow human being, that to me is one of the scariest things that the horror genre can explore. But I did like the very subtle like supernaturalness to this story as well. It was done just right to the point where it still feels very realistic. All right, moving into the top 5. I've got Revenge. Courtney Farjah is one of the it girls of 2024, and nobody can tell me any different. Her debut feature, though, is a bloody delight that makes what is, in my opinion, a like net insufferable subgenre of horror. And that's the rape revenge genre, and she just elevates it. And I know that there are a lot of movies that fall into that subgenre that are considered classics and very influential, and I'm not discrediting that, but it's like when you've seen one, you've seen the rest. It's like I don't know how many rape revenge movies I have to watch where the actual sexual assault scene is like 10-15 minutes long and just so fucking hard to watch. Like it just simply doesn't have to be like 10 minutes, 15 minutes straight of just really graphic sexual violence. So watching Revenge, you get what's happening without seeing much of anything. And then we get to the good stuff, which is the girl turning those men into bloody pulps. It's like all of the best parts of a rape revenge story, which is the revenge part, minimalist of the really shitty part, which is the rape part. So in the number 4 spot is Titan. It's very much one of those movies where it's like, the girls that get it, get it. Like I feel like I really don't have to explain why Titan is so high on the list. Like you guys just understand. We know Julia Ducournau could rock when we saw Raw, but this one, like my jaw was on the floor for the entire time. Like I thought having seen Raw beforehand would have prepared me for Titan. It's just this incredible story about gender, queerness, but also about found family, acceptance, what it means to be human. It's just so good. All right, top 3 times. So coming in at the number 3 spot is Infinity Pool, which understandably is kind of the same way I feel about Possessor, in that Infinity Pool is just like a perfect sci-fi horror. And this one has the added insanity of a brilliant Mia Goth performance. Like honestly, out of all of her performances I've seen, she scares the shit out of me in this movie. But Infinity Pool has everything. It's dark. It's got some pretty understandable themes of class systems and the self-indulgence of the uber rich, especially this idea that like if there were no like solid consequences to our actions, we would all have the capability of becoming monsters very easily. But these themes don't feel force-fed in any way. Speaking of not being force-fed, I love the so well played like open ending, the way that you can read it multiple different ways, changing your perception of which James we're looking at by the end of the film. Simple and brilliant. In second place is The Lodge, which is still just one of the scariest movies I've seen to date. The idea of being left alone in a secluded place with an adult that you don't really know is horrifying on its own. But add in this adult going through like this emotional internal rehashing of intense religious trauma, no fucking way. And it's such a brilliantly conflicting story because like on one hand, you don't want to see kids going through this type of terror and horror and violence. That's really scary. And as a society, I think it's a very natural thing to want to protect younger members of society, children. But in the movie, these kids also decide to play fuck around and find out with Grace's mental health, and it bites them in the ass in the most terrifying way. And the ending is so haunting. It gives me full body chills every time I watch it, and I know what's coming. Still gets me. And that leaves the GOAT, Parasite, as number one. Bong Joon-ho is just, I think he is like a genius. I think he might be. The way he discusses class disparity using these very literal visual cues like the layout of a house, of a multi-floor house, and the geography of Seoul. But he also brilliantly shows how the way these systems work is to pit the lower class against each other instead of fighting who is the real villain, which is the ruling class, the elite, the 1%, whatever you want to call them. It's such an incredible movie. I could go on and on, but I feel like you guys also get it. 1000%, a bajillion% earned its Best Picture win. So you already know what I'm gonna say now. It's your turn. I wanna hear your ranking of neon horror films in the comment sections, or if you don't wanna rank all of them, give me like your top 5, your top 3, your most favorite and your least favorite. As I mentioned in this video, I did make this a ranked list on my Letterboxd. The link is in the link tree in the description. So as we get more awesome neon horror movies, and there's more on the docket for this year, you can see how that ranking changes for me as time goes on. Thank you for watching this video. Sorry it wasn't as maybe like inflammatory or or divisive as my last video. To anybody new here that subscribed after I posted that video, there was a good amount of you, which was very interesting to see. Normally the subscriptions goes in the other way after I post a video like that. I'm not always like that in that video, but I am always sharing my honest opinions on horror movies all year round. So I'll see you soon with another new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.